Hello and welcome to a brief look at product design. I'm just going to be going over some methods of creating simple products in Procreate. I have a perfume bottle and a bowl that I've made to look like they're both made out of glass, reflecting some of the background light that's behind them. I want to go through some of the methods that I've used in order to create these products, and not to spend too much time on them. So they're sort of for ideation, for quickly creating the concept so that a client can view it. So I've got in this file, I've got a few different layers set up for the creation. So I used a quite light and not too saturated, about a middle yellow for it, so that everything else can stand out against that. And then once I created the sketch for it, I had gone in and done a silhouette of my bowl and my perfume bottle. So I'll just select out my perfume bottle and show you that what I used to create the rendering, that once I'd done the sketch using the pencil tool, just up here, using this HB pencil tool, I'd sketched out all of this. My layer separate to that, I'd sketched it all out, trying to just keep all the lines quite simple and efficient. And then once I'd done that, I filled the internal shape with grey, so that I could use this fill here. I could create an alpha lock or a mask of that. So once I copy that onto a new layer, so I've got my perfume bottle and my sketch. If I go to the layer that my silhouette's on, if I go to alpha lock, this will prevent any mark from going out over the edge of that silhouette. So if I try to draw through now, I'm trying to draw past it and I cannot. So I use this in order to define the edges of where I'm going to paint. So if I put any kind of large paintbrush over the top of it, like say an airbrush, and I'm trying to create a darker and lighter area of this, I can do so without affecting the canvas around it, and it will only put it onto the pixels that I've selected. So it's quite a simple and quick way of selecting out an area to be painted on. So that's you just tap on the layer and select alpha lock, and that'll give you that mask that I've set up on that layer. And after that, I just start putting some separate layers on top of it to add some light and add a bit more of that reflection to it. So I can go through and do a little bit of that now, showing you some of the methods that I use to create these textures. So I was using a gouache brush set to white and taking it through and defining out the areas where light's hitting. And once I had the paint down, I can take a smudging brush through this and blend it into the rest of it. And the smudging brush, you can use a similar thing and get it build up a bit of a texture. So depending on the surface that you have, you can give it some texture, or you can leave it as a shiny matte surface. And since this is glass, I'm going to try and show that there's some hard transitions of light, some that are really white, maybe even a bit blue in it. So once you put down some colour, you can choose your smudging tool maybe even go with a slightly smoother method of smudging, and you can adjust the opacity of the smudge, how hard it'll blend. So I've got a good base for it, and I want to just lighten this up, put some white through it. I'll use that, I'll do a bit of an acrylic. I'm trying to just pull out some points where highlights are coming through. So highlights on glass tend to show on edges and in line with the shape of the object. So since I've got a rectangle or like a little box, it's all within the constraints of that. And then for the one that I'd done earlier, this one here, where I had some background and foreground to it, so I've got it sitting on an object, I'd put this layer on top of it that was showing some of the colour behind that was that you was able to see through for this perfume bottle. Some of this background's actually showing through, so I can take some of this colour here and go up to that layer and just push a bit through, and if you want it a bit lighter, drop the opacity, and I'll just pull some of that darker colour through into these areas where there's some blue showing, or some like darker grey, some maybe 50% grey. So you can bring in some of the background colour into your glass to just show that it's actually translucent, it's transparent, you're able to see straight through it and see the background behind it. So that's one of a few of the steps that I went through to create this effect, doing the alpha lock on this layer here. Once I had the sketch, I went over the sketch with a hard edge brush, set to 100% opacity, and I got a outline or silhouette of it and set that to alpha lock. And in doing that, I'm able to quite quickly paint out this perfume bottle.